So the big picture for this lesson is the rational zero theorem. And there's this example from the last lesson about the factor and remainder because it connects together. So you're able to factor polynomials in that last lesson because you were given one of the zeros. But what if you weren't? What if you have to figure it out by yourself? Well, you wouldn't want to just sit there all day doing all kinds of possible numbers. There are just too many. But what if you could narrow it down a little bit? Well, that's where the rational zero theorem comes in. The rational zero theorem says for any polynomial function, every rational zero will have the following form. It'll be a factor of the constant term divided by factor of the leading coefficient. Let me use this polynomial function as an example. So here's how you list them all. Factors of the constant term. Well, the constant term is 6. So that is 6, 3, 2, 1. Factors of the leading coefficient. Well, the leading coefficient is 2, so it could be 2 or 1. So these are all possible factors when you divide them. So in other words, 6 divided by 2 is one possible factor. And by the way, these factors can be positive or negative, so you need to put plus or minus in front of the possible factor list. Next is 3 divided by 2, plus or minus that, plus or minus 2 divided by 2, plus or minus 1 divided by 2. So that takes care of these. Now we have to do the other list with the 1 as the denominator. So plus or minus 6 over 1, plus or minus 3 over 1, plus or minus 2 over 1, plus or minus 1 over 1. So any of these are possible factors. And some of them can be reduced. So let's do that. Plus or minus 6 divided by 2, that's plus or minus 3. Plus or minus 3 halves, that cannot be reduced. Plus or minus 2 over 2, that's plus or minus 1. Then plus or minus 1 half. And then plus or minus 6 over 1, that's plus or minus 6. Plus or minus 3 over 1 is plus or minus 3. Plus or minus 2 over 1, well, that's plus or minus 2. And then plus or minus 1 over 1, plus or minus 1. Some of these are repeats. Plus or minus 3 is in here twice. Plus or minus 1 is in here twice. So my final list would be all of these and then this. So if they're rational zeros, they're going to be these numbers. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 possibilities. Well, 14 possibilities seems like a lot, but it's much better than not knowing any. And you can also use a graphing calculator to help because you can graph the function to estimate which zeros you should try first. And just to verify this, I already worked this out and I found the zeros were 2, 3, negative 1 half. And that's because we had already factored in the last lesson to get f of x equals x minus 2 times x minus 3 times 2x plus 1. And that's how you get these zeros from the factors. So all of these fit on the list. 2 is on the list right here, plus 2. 3 is on the list, plus 3. Negative 1 half, that is on the list, negative 1 half. So this is just a way to make finding the factors and finding the zeros easier. And you'll see a lot of examples in the lesson. That's the big picture.